Happy Halloween Eve, everybody. It is the Fantasy and Frames Waiver Wire Show. It's Tuesday night. Guys, we are here. We've got the gang. Everybody is ready. We are going to give you the most up-to-date info on waivers this week, who you should be picking up, who you should be letting go, and who are you going to start in week 9 with all these crazy injuries and all this news that happened this afternoon. We got a lot to get through, but first and foremost, what's up, guys? We got Erica. Erica's the only one who came in costume today, celebrating Halloween. Can you guys guess what Erica is? She's wearing a Dak Prescott jersey for the
Skip Bayless.
QB14.
I'm a disappointment.
Oh,
I was right. Okay.
Boom. Oh, poor Dak. Poor Dak. Hey, everybody.
Could have worn Aaron Judge jersey as well.
Oh, there you go. There you go. That'd be fun. So sorry, Kev. So sorry.
Or any Falcons jersey. So,
I mean, you guys came down and put it on the Bucks pretty hard. I don't know that I'd say disappointment about that.
I got a Falcons jersey.
I own one.
Put it on.
Hey, you got our boy Kate Otten that we talked up last week. So, if you guys listening, just want to wait for a second. We're gonna go take a victory lap on the Kate Otten because we got to celebrate when we get things right. Because it's no fun when we get them wrong.
Bo Nix as well. Thank you very much.
Bo Nix. We got to talk about Bo Nix.
There is no opposite of fantasy receipts, so we have to do the pumping up of our.
I've seen him stuff. And he said
that's
not a stick. What's up with that? Like he's probably like, who is this tool, and why is he sending me positive stuff? And it's like I'm just trying to, there are right takes out there.
Yeah, we're a beacon of positivity here at Fantasy and Frames, guys. If you are watching and you have not hit that subscribe button yet, please go ahead and do so. If you want to get in the chat with us and in questions, jump on over to the YouTube page so we see those live. We will get to all of them. Because like I said, we got a lot of stuff to go through. So we'll just kick it right off, guys. First thing that came out today, Stephon Diggs to the IR, ACL.
Can I just say something real quick? I'm sorry. I didn't, just before we start getting into everything, I'm sorry. I need to okay. I just want to say, before we get into everything, just how important the next few days are going to be for all of us. How important this whole process is leading up to maybe, next Tuesday and the next few things. I just want to make sure, I did my civic duty and I want to make sure, to get the vote out there and to, be true to myself. I want to be absolutely true to myself. So I voted and I will share my vote. I voted for Anthony Richardson. I wanted to make sure I was on the right side of history with the division in our country. So I just wanted to make sure that was out front and center before anybody.
I wrote in Desmond Ridder. So what does that mean?
When you say you voted for Anthony Richardson, does that mean that you voted for him to be benched or for him to start?
I voted for him to be starting as Colts quarterback. I know there's a lot of good people on both sides of the aisle with that. It's really provided a lot of back and forth talk between both sides. So I just want to kind of we are the beacon of hope, the bastion of positivity in an otherwise unpositive world. So
that's right. I think there's something to it, like fantasy wise. Let's just talk about Richardson for a second. Like we start there. Like I think fantasy, it makes a lot of guys more viable than they necessarily would have been. But I think real football, like does that? I don't really know how many favors it does to Anthony Richardson. Like how do you know what you have for the rest of the season? Like you're just gonna throw Joe Flacco in, which I guess, but I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it for real football. But I'm not a Colts fan, so meh.
It's bad.
It's bad. It's not good.
It's the same thing with Bryce Young.
Right.
Andy Dalton for Bryce Young.
I have to disagree there because the Colts were actually in a game this weekend with a chance to be tied for the division, and Anthony Richardson threw a pick at the end of the first half that really cost them the game. And I believe they could have won that game with Joe Flacco. And if you're a coach, to me, how do you keep your players that you're trying to win and do everything you can when you have the division right there in front of you and you're playing a guy that's 2 of 14 in the first half? Like, I understand once you're out of contention, absolutely, you got to do what you are for the future. But, they had a game this week where they could have basically grabbed the division lead and, it is what it is.
Yeah, and now they're tied for 8th overall in the AFC.
I mean, they lost to the Texans by 2. It's not like they were uncompetitive. And I get all the merits of, Anthony Richardson. But look, how bad was Josh Allen when he was in his rookie season? He was, you could say, much worse than Anthony Richardson. And I think a lot of the metrics back that up as far as EPA per play, even just like some of the box score stuff. Like, we're talking about a quarterback that has all 10 starts in his NFL career. I think he has 17 in college. You drafted him 4th overall. You have to see what you have, because what do you get when you put Joe Flacco in? You get a 9-8 season and a playoff. You get to lose on Saturday afternoon to the Denver
That's what the
Broncos
Packers did with Aaron
card.
Rodgers. I mean, in fairness,
I guess, but that's also a different 2007, 2008 to 2024. It's a different league. You need more patience with guys that, especially when you drafted 4th overall. Yeah, I would venture to say that drafting Rodgers in the 20s is a bit different than drafting a guy who, if you're drafting a guy 4th overall, you need to give him more than 10 starts. Like, I'm sorry. I know you have the benefit
I'm talking
of having Joe Flacco,
Jordan
but
Love, who was basically waiting in the wings. And I mean, the Packers won like 9-10 games every year, and they weren't really competing for Super Bowls. I believe in you. If you can sit a rookie and they can learn and they can get better from that. And I think it's very fragile when they go out and play and do really bad, that you can end up actually doing more damage for them in the long run than good. And I agree with you that he's going to eventually need reps. I just don't know if that's really the answer right now while you're in playoff contention, because, I mean, I don't know.
But what are you saying to a guy when you take him off the field? You announce a 39-year-old quarterback to start. Like, what does that do to you mentally? Like, that's I understand, and that's one of my main cruxes is that you need reps. Like, you drafted the guy 4th overall, you need to get the guy reps. You need a guy that give him more of a leash than that. And the fact that you're already kind of messing with his head, pulling him to, he's already in his head a little bit because he's had so many injuries, you would guess. And now you're taking him knowing that he can get benched at any time, even if he does come back in. Like, how are you supposed to feel? I think that's a really tough thing to go through as a quarterback, where it's almost irreparable if you just keep, yanking the chain a little bit.
Well, I think too, it's so important, like with these quarterbacks, these young quarterbacks, like where you land, like, and who's there to help develop them. Yeah. Right. I mean, like, look at what happened to poor Sam Darnold for so long. And I mean, how many, like OCs did he go through? How many coaches did he go through? Right. And now he's finally somewhere that can actually help develop him and get talent, like that he is talented and show that. And look at him now. So, I mean, how long did it take though? Because he was stuck with so many guys that really didn't know how to develop quarterbacks.
And Shane Steichen was supposed to be the guy to do that too. And that's what leads me to see this and think this is not a Shane Steichen thing. This is a Jim Irsay thing. And going to Flacco, and even if that doesn't work out, I feel like the nail is in the coffin for not only Shane Steichen, but for Chris Ballard, the GM as well. They're going to find someone to try to get something out of Anthony Richardson, because right now, I don't want to say he's Jamarcus Russell, but the way they're like pushing and pulling on him, it's close. It's not an abject disaster like the New York Yankees, who just gave up another home run.
To Freddie. Yes, new record.
Was it really to Freddie Freeman?
Yeah.
I thought you were just joking. That's funny.
Freddie.
No, that really happened.
It's real life.
It's real life.
Unbelievable.
We don't need to talk about baseball anymore, else this will become a baseball show.
Man, I can't wait to listen to Sports Talk Radio tomorrow in Atlanta.
Oh my goodness. Guys, we have got some questions in here. I love all these questions in the chat. Guys, if your questions are like position specific, we're going to try to get to those when we are talking about those specific positions. Just so that it kind of like gets, in with the, kind of players that we're talking about at the time. Because I see some wide receiver questions. I see a whole bunch of other things. But yeah, just remember, be patient. We will get to all of your questions, and thank you for throwing those in there. All right, so talked about Anthony Richardson. Let's move on a little bit. Let's go to Houston. Diggs is on the IR. Torn AL season is completely over. I didn't think that's what happened when he got hurt. Like, it didn't really look like that at first. So that was kind of surprising to me. Were you guys surprised about that at all? I mean, I was shocked when I got that message today.
Yeah, no, I was completely shocked by it. I was planning on writing about him this week in the plays and fades, and no, I got that news. And I was like, well, time to pivot, I guess. But
the way he came off the field looked like he pulled his hamstring. It did not look like a ACL. Usually you were down,
right?
Or, and I saw him clutch his leg, and I'm like, all right, well, crap, there goes 2 weeks.
Well, and it just seems super underwhelming, when it wasn't dramatic or like you said, he didn't fall to the ground or anything. It's just the whole thing. I was like, oh my gosh. Tank Dell season. Are you guys excited? No.
Just this. I mean,
excited about that.
CJ Stroud just hasn't. I tweeted it out on Sunday. CJ Stroud is doing his rookie season this year, and he did his second season last year. It does not look like the same offense under PFF Bobby.
It does. I mean, now that their running game is so much better, and they don't have to rely on the passing as much, it doesn't look the same at all. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, it feels like Stroud's more of a caretaker at this point instead of having to. I mean, they kind of had to do that to move the ball, but the thing is, you could still have that run game and throw downfield. That's what the Ravens are doing right now. Why are you not I know obviously he's not a.
We're going to talk about the Ravens.
We are going to talk about the Ravens.
We're going to get to them.
But it's tough with what they have right now because Tank Dell, we know, plenty dynamic. He's going to be outside. Xavier Hutchinson is going to be probably running a lot of the routes too. It's going to be like Robert Woods and John. It's going to be a weird split between Robert Woods and Hutchinson.
What about Mechie? Don't forget about John.
Mechie will be in there too. I'm wondering who, because those are all primarily outside receivers.
Right.
Who's going to be in the slot there? And Robert Woods has been in the slot when he was in the Rams, so I could see them deferring to the veteran, but I do think it's going to be Hutchinson at first crack with Mechie kind of being the Dontavian Wicks, I guess, of a guy that can sub in on all three positions as far as wide receivers, but I think Hutchinson gets the first crack.
Let me ask you real quick, because guys, when we were doing our pre-show prep for all of this, this was before all this information came out. So none of the Houston receivers are on our list for tonight to go grab. But does that mean they should be added? Are you guys spending any fab on Xavier Hutchinson and John Mechie, perhaps, or Robert Woods? Do they crack your list of guys that you might be looking at to go after this week? Yeah, I think they have to. I mean, I think if you're in competitive leagues, I think you kind of have to at least consider them.
Yeah. I think you're putting, some feeler bids out there. I think you're putting maybe 5 to 7% on even each of those guys, just hoping to get a piece. And it's really just if one of them hits, you're golden.
Yeah.
But I think you have to be in on them. I maybe not so much Woods, but certainly Hutchinson and Mechie.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I'm they're not my top priority ads, but I think they're definitely in the mix. And, I would venture to say, I can look up the numbers and see, but I would venture to say we're probably talking about close to 0% rostered for all three of those guys. If I just had to
and rightfully so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not great. It's definitely not great, but it's kind of like Jacksonville, which we're going to talk about in a second. At some point that you got to put a body out there and somebody's going to catch the ball. You're not excited about
I actually think they lean more into the run.
Jacksonville?
No, Houston, which is what they're doing at an elite level. So if you're asking me, I'd actually probably rather have a Damian Pierce or something moving forward than those wire. I mean, they're waiting on Nico Collins. They're a totally different team when Nico's there. Mm-hmm. And I just think in the meantime, you're going to see a lot of them running the ball. And, hopefully Stroud will figure it out, but this is not that surprising. And it was why one of my strongest takes this summer was him being the 5th QB for ADP for a long stretch of the summer was insane because he doesn't run. And I mean, if you don't run, It's just, I mean, look at Mahomes this year. It's just very difficult to predict passing yards, whether it be injuries, offensive line, like a million different things for fantasy.
Yeah. All right, guys. Let's see. All right. So promise we talk about Baltimore real quick, and then we'll get to Jacksonville. So, well, actually, I have one more thing to say about Houston. So obviously Baltimore goes out and makes that trade for Deontay Johnson today. They're probably like kicking themselves that they couldn't get to him first in Houston. But does that do we potentially see maybe a Mike Williams getting traded there since he's kind of on the block right now?
Mike Williams to Houston?
Houston, yeah.
Potentially, but I think I like some of those younger guys even more than him. I don't want to say like Mike Williams is like busted goods or anything, but he just has not been able to stay on the field, able to be, or even earning some targets. Like, I don't know if that's a move that it might be to shore up depth, but as like an asset that I would want on a fantasy team, I don't think I feel comfortable with him.
Yeah, I think that you see what you have with the guys that you have there now and just wait for Collins to come back, which should be pretty soon, right? Week 10 was the prediction.
I would be going after Jacoby Myers for the Raiders. If
there's
I was
another name.
Teams and you need a wide receiver. That's a team going nowhere. And he's been okay being like the number 2-3 option, which would be my concern about Deontay Johnson with teams like the Texans. Is it's like, yeah, he'd be a great addition, but you know, you're not going to be getting the ball like what you've been used to in Carolina or even, Pittsburgh at time. And I again, if you own Nico Collins, you're going to be rewarded, for not having him for all this period, because if you thought his target rate was insane early in the season, I mean, he's going to become, I would assume, one of the most targeted wide receivers in football on a per game basis the rest of the year once he returns.
I will add one more thing quick about Diggs is that I know we talked about, obviously we're talking about Houston still a little bit, but like he did everything right. Like he took a pay cut. He shortened his contract down to 1 year, a prove-it deal. And he was, people want to say he's yelling on the sidelines. I think by all accounts, I think he was at least a decent teammate, good teammate. And I know the ACL is going to screw up some things for him next year, but I will be a slappy and draft that dude in the 13th round next year in best ball all day long.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think he did. Like, he didn't go in, he didn't act like a diva. I don't think that he was acting like a diva. That's a real shame for him, considering his contract situation for this year. So Deontay Johnson to Baltimore today. I mean, this is a team that really isn't scoring through the air. So, I mean, are we super? I'm not really excited about it. I don't know that this really does anything other than just kind of lower everybody's value a smidge, except for Lamar. Maybe
this is what's wrong with NFL teams: is your defense sucks, and your solution is, well, let me go get yet another offensive weapon. I just don't understand what these teams are doing. There's 3-4 different defensive positions that they could use a player of Deontay Johnson's level, and it would make a way bigger impact. I don't totally understand how they're going to utilize him, because he does a lot of the same things that Zay Flowers does in many ways. I thought Bateman was kind of their, deep target. And then, of course, the way they utilize the tight ends, we know how much they're going to run it with Henry and Lamar. I just, I don't understand.
They don't use 11 personnel. Like, that's the thing. Like, how are you going to fit him on the field when you have all of these running backs? You have all these tight ends. Like, stylistically, why? Like, where do you fit? And then for fantasy purposes, like, I don't even see him running 80% of routes on the team, because how can you, where do you fit him in? He's like just square peg round hole. And I get it, because you get paid almost nothing, not nothing, but a pick swap of 5th and 6th round picks for Deontay Johnson, which, if you look at that, why weren't more teams in on Deontay Johnson, teams that could use him?
Right.
Maybe they were trying to keep him from going to the Chiefs or, teams like that. Like that's honestly like what I was wondering.
Bills even. Yeah. Like, I mean, I know they just got Amari Cooper, but I think he would have
different kind of,
right. Or like, I don't know his history of Rodgers, if they were smoking it up or whatnot, he could have gone there. But yeah, there's so many teams. Like, he wasn't going back to the Steelers. That's for damn sure. But yeah, there's other teams that could have certainly use Deontay Johnson, and people are kind of celebrating. And it's okay. I mean, Deontay Johnson's a great football player. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong; he's one of the best guys at getting open, separation. But from what the Ravens do and how they move the ball and how they use their personnel, it is befuddling how you go to get that guy because where does he even fit?
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, so Jacksonville also, had a lot of injuries come out, yesterday, today. We will get to them because we are going to talk about some of those Jacksonville guys once we get to our wide receivers. So we just want to kick it off real quick. Again, remember, if you've got questions, we are going to get those in there when we hit those specific position groups. I see so many questions in here. Don't worry, guys. I am writing them down. So we are going to get to everybody's stuff. Don't worry. Let's hit it off with quarterback. We got Jameis Winston. We got Bo Nix. We're going to talk about Matt Stafford. We're going to talk about Joe Flacco also. As Jameis said, guys, when you're talking about waivers, and he really didn't say this is to waivers, but you guys get where I'm going. You just have one shot, right? You cannot,
I think Eminem said that once too, or something.
I think Eminem, there was some white guy up in Detroit that said that.
And a former president who I believe also said that recently.
Also. A lot of Eminem quotes going around this week. So, so we're let's see, who is our number one wide receiver? No, wide receiver, I'm sorry, quarterback. Usually we start with the highest rostered and we go through that. Next. Do we have a graphic for that at all? Are we able to pull up a graphic for that?
We do not, but
we don't have
that's what I was saying.
That's
before.
I'm sorry.
That was a disc. Yeah, no, that's what we were talking about.
I didn't hear you. Okay, my bad. I thought we did have graphics. Okay. Well, just kidding. So we're gonna go by numbers in here. So that means Keith, you and I are gonna talk about.
Zoom in on Rich for us. We talk about Bo Nix. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, Rich. Go ahead, Steve. You want to talk about Bo Nix?
Yes, we're gonna talk about Bo Nix real quick. Keith and I both are into Bo Nix this week. I know we talked about him before on the show. But it just really warrants talking about again because he is rostered 32% of leagues right now. So you can get him in a lot of different places. You do have buys coming up. If you have Russell Wilson, if you have Brock Purdy, you're going to be looking to replace them for this week. For Bo Nix, 6 of his 8 weeks so far this season, because they've not had a bye, he's put up double-digit fantasy points. The only weeks that he did not put up double digits were against Pittsburgh and the Jets, obviously 2 good defenses. 5 of his 8 weeks were over 200 yards. He is 4th in rushing touchdowns. That's right, the little Bo Nix, the rushing touchdown machine. He has got 4. He's tied with Jaden Daniels. Bet you wouldn't have guessed that unless you knew. He has got 259 yards rushing. That is 4th among quarterbacks, not just among rookies. No, among quarterbacks completely. The Broncos are also, surprisingly, I think, at least I was surprised when I saw the stat, throwing the 9th most in the league. They've got 261 passing attempts so far this year, which if you average that out per game, that breaks down to Bo Nix throwing about 33 times a game. So you love to see that. You love to see him getting it through the air. They don't have a bye until week 14. So if you need to pick up somebody, you've got to replace someone. He is in it for the long haul. Denver does play Baltimore in week 9, which as you saw with Jameis, you can absolutely throw on them. So that's my spiel for Bo Nix. I would not have guessed that I would be talking up Bo Nix in week 9, but here we are.
No.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I'm totally with you. He's actually one of my plays in the Play and Fade article that'll be dropping later this week. I love Bo Nix this week, especially this week. I mean, you said it, Stacey. Baltimore Ravens, they're exploitable. They're giving up 21.9 points per game each week on average. So, fire up Bo Nix where you can.
Last week, when I recommended Bo Nix, I said I would rather have him than Patrick Mahomes, and I would drop Patrick Mahomes and play Bo Nix the rest of the season. And I know some people probably are like, Keith, what are you smoking? Only the good stuff. But Bo Nix is a really good QB for fantasy. And we see this. We saw this with Jalen Hurts year 1 in Philly. When a guy runs as often as he does, he is going to put up consistent points. And then, you made the point about Baltimore. Forget Baltimore. Obviously, they have them 30. The rest, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4. Of his next 8 opponents, they got KC, who gives up the 11th most rushing yards per game to QBs, 24 per. Atlanta, who's 25th overall versus QB, allows the third most rushing yards to QBs. They got Las Vegas, who's 22nd overall. Then Cleveland, who gives up the 7th most rushing yards per game to QBs, 4th most explosive plays of 20 yards or more. Indy, 18th overall versus QB, 8th most passing yards per game, 6th most of 40 or more. Chargers are actually the one good defense in that 8-game stretch. It's a legit, like really good defense versus QBs. But then they get Cincy again, 28th overall versus QBs, allows the most rushing yards to QBs in the NFL. He has actually got a great slate of games going up basically through the playoffs. I mean, that's, I believe, through week 17. So I think that he absolutely should be rostered in all leagues unless you're just loaded at QB. He's not somebody necessarily you're going to start every single week, but he's going to start most weeks. I think this is now 19.5 points or more in like 4 of his last 6. How many QBs can say that? Not that many. And again, they have a very favorable schedule when you talk about defenses coming up. So I think he should be rostered in every league with his rushing upside.
Absolutely. And just to go back, so you mentioned Mahomes, right? I actually saw somebody in one of my high stakes leagues drop Mahomes last week. If you're looking at just as far as fantasy numbers, fantasy points per game, Patrick Mahomes coming in with a 14.4 so far this season. Bo Nix, 16.6.
It's even bigger disparity the last
several QBs
because his worst games are at the very beginning of the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
I'm totally fine with Nix. It's like, we were all gaga about Drake May, and like Bo Nix was kind of just lagging the weeds there of, well, I can rush the ball too, guys. And look, I mean, the weapons are not anything to write home about, and that's probably what leads to a lot of trepidation with going to pick up a guy like Bo Nix. But he's getting it done, and sometimes that's really all you need. The guy is just producing. So, I mean, I know it's easy gain, get the guy who's scoring a bunch of points, but at this point, I don't know if you can really worry about Denver's offense to the fact that Bo Nix is just even to the detriment of like the wide receivers around him, because there are some we like, but it's like he's not being carried by anybody. He's not being carried by Cortland Sutton, or I mean, they 8 for 100 last week, but he's not being carried by like Adam Troutman or Troy Franklin or Devon Veely or any of these guys. Like, he's really just kind of propping up a bad, like probably one of the worst receiving cores outside of New England. So, I mean,
and we need to respect Sean Payton, who I'll admit I question whether or not he was still. Yeah, I think it's very impressive when you look how bad the Broncos defense and offense was, particularly after they got rid of Russell for reasons you'd have to explain to me. I did not believe this team would be in playoff contention, and they're in very good shape for the playoffs in the AFC. And Bo Nix is somebody who I watched play at Auburn. I watched play at Oregon, and from seeing him play like Georgia, Alabama, I did not think he would have any kind of success at this level. And he's been, again, pretty good. Now, the reason they're throwing it so much is because he doesn't really throw it very far down the field. But even that number's up after being like just barely 4 yards per attempt the first 5 games. It's, I think, just over 7 like the last 3. So,
and his deep balls are like fine too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know that was a lot of has Bo Nix even thrown deep like at all, but I mean, his deep balls look fine. And I guess, it's hard when you want to evaluate a quarterback because you're usually evaluating them in concert with all the pass catchers. And notably, Sean Payton has done a great job of like getting the guys to put around him. Like, we've lambasted him for going out to get Josh Reynolds and, basically bring in all the Saints buddies. But,
also their run game is atrocious, so maybe that's why they're throwing more this year.
Yeah, it's not great.
Screwed me.
Not great. Not great.
Kept me from a really big day by doing nothing against the worst run defense in the league. Thanks, Javonte.
All right, guys, we got Matt Stafford coming in. He's rostered in 30.2% of leagues. Rich, this is your guy for this week.
Sure, yeah, and really it's not about Matt Stafford, it's about who he got back. The fact that he got Kupp and Puka Nacua back obviously showed how much he was missing them with how well they played last week. He put up 25.76 points. Again, granted, that was against the Vikings, so you got to take it with a grain of salt. But he still threw for 279 yards and 4 touchdowns. He'll get Seattle this week, which they've given up the 15 most points to quarterbacks.
There goes Rich.
Oh no, we lost Rich.
I wrote about Stafford in my waiver wire column on Fantasy and Frames this week. Yeah, I mean Stafford's been an abject failure as a quarterback with Whittington, Atwell, and Tyler Johnson and Demarcus Robinson. Like it hasn't been great, but you get Puka Nacua and you get Cooper Kupp back. I mean, that's getting 2 elite weapons back is always a cure for what ails you. So, yeah, you got to put Stafford at the very least back in the streaming category. At least if you're not putting him top 12,
so
you're at least
a little concerned with the matchup.
Oh, whoa! You still there, Rich?
Rich, are you there?
Felt like a ghost type deal right there.
They really did. It is spooky season.
It's like, is that you, God? Are you speaking to me? Oh no, it's just Rich. I'm sorry. Rich.
Do we need to get the Ouija board out?
Maybe. Well, how about we, Kev, do you want to talk about Jameis? And then when we get Rich back, we can go back if he's got any other thoughts on Stafford he wants to share.
Do I want to talk about Jameis Winston?
I mean, come on.
Pull my arm, why don't you?
Right? I mean, we talked about Jameis last week, guys, and we told you. We tried to tell you about Jameis last week.
Yeah, like all the precincts are reporting that Jameis Winston is a hit. And now he is been named the starting quarterback moving forward for our Cleveland Browns. The post Deshaun Watson, hopefully, Cleveland Browns. Everything has been great. The second most air yards by a team last week. Jameis Winston knows how to push the ball downfield, be aggressive. Anytime you can make Elijah Moore moderately successful, I think that's a win for everybody involved. Certainly helps my failing Moore bags in Dynasty. Mm-hmm. Look, we all, they traded Amari Cooper. We all thought this team was just headed for, down the drain, the Coriolis effect. But Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, and everybody's favorite wide receiver that we will talk about a little bit later, Cedric Tillman, and David Njoku. Can't forget him, the Chief. It's an entirely different situation in Cleveland now, where it's an offense you want to target based on pass volume, based on aggressiveness. So, and Cedric Tillman looks like a completely different receiver from what he did last year. He got some starts as like the as Matt Harmon called it, the sacrificial X receiver. But he is not that. He is earning targets. He is being used creatively. He's being used on like posts and slants and crossers and stuff like that. He's being used a number of different ways, and it's been great for Jameis. And the pregame Jameis Winston, the postgame Jameis Winston, he is a walking billboard. And you know what? I don't care whatever phone number is on there. I'm dialing it. Sign me up. Give me all the Jameis Winston I can handle.
He is a ticking time bomb, though. And what I mean from that is there's going to be very good weeks and obviously very bad. There was nothing more Jameis than
I'll let future Kevin worry about
the losing interception in that game, and maybe the best safety in football. Dropped a bunny, and then he threw an absolute dime on the very next play
Tillman,
for the game.
Right?
For the game.
Yeah, that was Tillman's.
It's like that is literally everything you need to know about Jameis in like a minute. And it was great. Yeah. I'm happy for him. I do seriously wonder, though, whoever is making that decision in the Cleveland organization, how do you answer to the players and to your fan base when you started Deshaun Watson, and even after he got injured, you wanted to go to DTR, knowing, I mean, we knew, right? We were screaming for weeks that Jameis is the best QB on this roster. And then he finally starts and you beat one of the best teams in football in a shootout, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you then go back to your fans or to the players and say, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I tweeted this out there. They either need a change in ownership, or if that's the GM, he needs to be fired. If that's the coach, they need to be fired, because I mean, what are you trying to do? Like, you basically wasted a team that made the playoffs last year with Joe Flacco, and you basically wasted the first 7 weeks of your season.
Yeah. I mean, I will answer that with another question. Like, how can they do that? Do we know ball? I mean, do we just know ball? I mean with James Winston
and Cedric Tillman. I mean, I feel like this is, like I said, guys, we're a beacon of positivity on this show. So we are going to celebrate our wins. Absolutely. We're going to own our losses, but we are absolutely celebrating our wins 100%. So if you picked up Cedric Tillman, go ahead and and Jameis, just do a little pat on the back for yourself.
You listen to the Sunday morning show. I told you I was starting Cedric Tillman in 100% of cash game DraftKings lineups. That worked out very well. So thank you guys for getting me on Cedric Tillman on Tuesday, to where on Sunday he was all over my DraftKings.
Yeah, chef's kiss. It was beautiful. Erica, bring us home with former Cleveland Browns quarterback Joe Flacco, current Indianapolis quarterback.
Yeah. So when we made this list, it was last night. So I put Joe Flacco in just as an insurance backup, but now he's a starter. So
you should have said that you just felt like there was going to be a change coming after that performance, and then just look like an absolute.
Yes, I knew everything.
Well, maybe Erica has the power to where just her putting that in writing changed the future.
Exactly.
I will like to amend my statement. Erica knows ball.
So we've already touched on Joe Flacco, quite a bit already. But what's great about Flacco is he makes the other guys better. So with Pittman, when Flacco was a starter, Pittman was getting 61 yards per game and had 14 receptions. And with Richardson, in 5 games, he was only getting 33 yards per game and 15 total receptions. So, I mean, Pittman is already going to be a better receiver with Flacco. Flacco has a better completion rate, 65.7% completion rate to Richardson's league worst 44.4%. Flacco's already got 7 touchdowns in, the 2.5 games that he started. Richardson 4. It's just going to be a different team with Flacco at the helm. He has a tougher matchup this week with the Vikings, but he's still going to throw the ball. I mean, he's a pocket passer, and Pittman's going to be a lot better with Flacco this week.
Yes.
Joe Flacco, kingmaker.
I'm just glad that we can start Downs again, because I honestly, I've taken him out of our Vampire League lineup, obviously much to my dismay, because he actually had a good week this week, surprisingly. But now I feel like we can at least start him with confidence. Will has a question for us for the quarterbacks. So Will got offered Kirk Cousins straight up for Anthony Richardson in his it's a super flex best ball 20-man keeper. He's got Tua, Burrow, and Hurts. He also owns that same manager's first round pick next year, and he plays this guy in the coming week. Should he take this trade?
I would. You already have Burrow and Hurts, potentially Tua moving. So it's not like you're hurting for young QBs. And I think that Cousins definitely makes you better for this season because you would have, really, I mean, obviously I think Hurts is pretty much somebody you got to start every week, even in a super flex, but you can kind of go by matchup with the other 3. And the great thing about the Falcons is because they have 6 sacks, 6 this season. I think there's it's awful. It's what happens again when you draft Bijan and pass on Jalen Carter, but they're going to have to, throw it and fling it and score it. So I don't really see the downside to it. It'd be different, obviously, if you didn't have all those other young QBs already. Plus, sounds like you have this dude's first round pick anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I'm down. Just you've got a wealth of quarterbacks. I mean, yeah, I'm with it.
Yeah, we like it. All right, so Will, hopefully you go ahead and make that trade. We're going to move on to our wide receivers. We have got a few that we're going to talk about tonight. Guys, we have got Cedric Tillman coming in 24%. We've got Alec Pierce at 20%. Go on down to Elijah Moore at 5, Calvin Austin at 2. Then we're going to throw in 2 guys that are pretty much rostered in 0% of leagues, which are going to be Jalen Coker and Parker Washington. Kev, again, like, I'm going to let you talk about Cedric Tillman because I'm going to still be out doing my little victory lap on that because just so excited that we got that one right. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about Tillman just a few minutes ago, but just to kind of add on to what he's done the last 2 weeks, 83 to 93% of dropbacks he's run a route on. Last week's 35% of the air yards, 27% of first read targets. He's been like the prototypical X receiver. And I think Judy and Elijah Moore are fine. I think David Njoku's obviously one of the better tight ends, especially when you get a guy that can be aggressive and can spike the pass rate like Jameis Winston can. But the fact that he's also looking for Cedric Tillman, who I think you have to add a little something into the backup quarterback, 4th wide receiver kind of narrative. That's what they were to start the season because Tillman was behind all those other guys and Winston was obviously behind Watson and apparently behind DTR too. So add that to the narrative. And now it's almost no surprise that, Winston is elevating 1, 2, 3, 4 targets now in this offense. I don't think all 3 of those guys are going to be, viable weekly, but Tillman has looked the best in the last 2 weeks. So I think he needs to be the guy who needs to be rostering. I think he provides way more upside than even Judy or Elijah Moore. I think Elijah Moore is totally fine, and Erica will talk about him certainly. But and Judy I think he's fine, but I don't think he has any of the target upside that Cedric Tillman has consistently and weekly.
Yeah, Kev, if you had not already claimed Cedric Tillman, I definitely would have done it, but I am right there with you. Like, I just love Cedric Tillman so much. Just super exciting to watch all the things that we already talked about. I think it's his role. Like, he stepped into that Amari Cooper role. It's his role until otherwise decided. Erica, we're going to skip a little bit and talk about Elijah Moore because he's on the same team. So just kind of keep that flow going. But this was your guy this week. What do you think about Elijah Moore?
Yeah, so I kind of had Tillman as my guy too, but Moore also did very well. He was actually
gotta get to the talk a little earlier, guys.
Right, I'm slacking. But Moore actually led the team this week with 10 first reads and had 11 targets. He went 8 for 85, which is great if you're in a PPR league. So the last 2 weeks, he's had a total of 14 catches on 18 targets for 122 yards. And this week he ran a total of 37 routes, which is less than Jerry Jeudy, but had more catches, more first reads, more yards, and even had that red zone target. He didn't get the touchdown, that went to Tillman. But I think one of these 2 guys, I would choose both of them over Jeudy at this point because Jeudy is just not a viable option in this offense.
No, I agree. I don't think Jerry Jeudy is somebody that I'm even looking at right now.
Yeah, 12 targets on 77% of routes. That's 36.4% targets per out run. That's pretty damn good for a guy that's primarily in the slot. Ran routes on 74% in the slot. So we know he's going to be out there. When the formation condenses, I think it gets a little dicier for Elijah Moore to where if they get into a better script, if they get into like winning scripts, I think it could be a bit dangerous for Elijah Moore, but as long as, because I don't think the Browns are like a very good team. So I think primarily it'll either be close, neutral scripts or negative, which means good, a lot of passing, more aggressiveness. So I think that's going to be good for Moore too.
Yeah, I just want Moore to be a thing after, all these years holding him in Dynasty.
We deserve it, damn it.
Agreed.
Our time is coming.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So Rob, real quick, has a question about Elijah Moore. So here, if you can see, yep, Elijah Moore or Pop Douglas in ROS and PPR. I'm a Pop Douglas girl here. I think he's getting more targets than Elijah Moore is going to get. Oh, Kevin looks like he disagrees, but that's okay. There's good people on both sides, right, Kevin?
I think I'm more, honestly. Just the offensive environment. Drake May likely not playing next week because of a concussion. It's going to be Jacoby Brissett there. But rest of the season, I think it's more even than people want to realize. Now that if we're getting Jameis Winston for the rest of the season, just based on target volume, even though he's like the technically third or fourth in the pecking order, because there's so much pass volume, I don't think that matters that much, at least as much as it probably should when you're evaluating wide receivers. So like the first on the New England, like what does that really mean? Because you still have Hunter Henry, you still have Kayshon Boutte, who's running a lot of routes. You know, I think I would take more there, but slightly. I understand Pop Douglas. I think he's a good player, but he seems to be getting not phased out, but he's been banged up. He's not running as many routes as we would like to. Like, I know he's been primarily slot guy too. Like looking like last week, 67% of routes. Like you don't like to see that when you're trying to get some target volume out of a guy. And I know he left the game too.
Jacoby played a large majority of that game, though. I mean, it's just like the week before he was sick and missed the entire second half.
Yeah, true. But even since he left the game in week 7 against Jacksonville, the week before, he's still, 9 targets, 6 of 92 and a touchdown on only 67% of routes. Like I think that just the routes thing is way more important than people give credit for it too, because to earn a target, you have to be on the field. So
also remember that the Browns played the Ravens, and I know everybody is so excited, and I get it about the Browns passing attack with Jameis, but the Ravens are by far the worst pass defense in the NFL, and it's not going to be that easy week in and week out. I just want to see all of these guys, like outside of obviously Tillman and Njoku. I think those are obviously going to be priorities moving forward. I just need to see more of Jameis and the Cleveland offense versus other defenses before I'm all in on like all the Cleveland pass catchers.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah. Guys, so if you're watching, you've noticed so Rich is having some technical difficulties, so he is going to be back as soon as he can. But he was going to talk about Alec Pierce, who is rostered at 20%. Do you guys think that now with Flacco being at the helm that this is going to kind of boost Alec Pierce a little bit, maybe more so than if Anthony Richardson was back there?
Doesn't it technically hurt him, or am I mistaken that most of his big games have been with Richardson?
They have. I mean, it's really tough because Alex Pierce has never been a target earning guy. Like just going through the stuff he's earned. I mean,
I know going into last week he had 15 total receptions on the year. 5 of them were 40 yards more, which is absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, that game 5, the week 5 that he had, that was the game where he did nothing until the fourth quarter with Joe Flacco and ended up with 3 for 134 and a touchdown. After that, 3 catches for 26 yards on 11 targets last 3 weeks. So if you're going to prioritize anybody, I would say it's certainly Downs. Like Alec Pierce is just who he is. He is the sacrificial X receiver where he is running coverage off for everybody else in the offense, and he's going to get his eventually, but he's a better in best ball guy where you don't know when the production is coming, but you take him in best ball knowing you don't have to put him in a lineup. Putting him in a lineup, even with buys, starting back up 2 teams this week, another 4, and then like 6, like that's a tough proposition for me to put him in a lineup that I'm setting.
Yeah. Absolutely. Keith, do you want to talk about Calvin Austin and Jalen Coker real quick, and then we'll wrap it up with Parker Washington?
Yeah, I like how you always say real quick to me. Like, what the hell?
Real quick.
We're going to start playing. We're going to start playing the music like the Oscars.
Right? Yeah. Like, I feel like I'm about to see a hook come in from the right side of the screen.
On the side.
Jalen Coker, it's just a situation. Deontay Johnson obviously missed last week. Now he's traded. And he saw a season high snaps, 69%, targets 6, receptions 4, like fantasy points. Like it was just, he had a day. But if you look over his last 4, not a bad little stretch for him. 14 targets, 12 receptions, 186 yards and a touchdown. Again, Deontay was playing for, I believe, half of those games, the entire game. And he plays for a team that is historically bad on defense. Like I'm talking historically bad, meaning what? Carolina's down, and they are chucking it a lot. And I think they're going to want to give Coker a look. Like, I really do. Like, to me, moving forward without Johnson, it's Coker Leggett time in Carolina, where they're going to really try to see what they have in two pretty, talented young wide receivers. And then Calvin Austin, like this is only for like super deep leagues and buys. But I just want to, suggest that this guy's now had 2 wide receiver 16 or better weeks, which that's not nothing. And last week he faced one of the 14 teams in the NFL who have allowed 20 or more passes of 20 plus yards and 4 or more passes of 40 plus yards. So basically teams that give up big plays and regularity. 3 of his next 4 games are against teams who also fall on that list. The Ravens lead the league in receiving yards, as we mentioned. And then all 4, the Commanders, Ravens, and Browns, allow 11.2 yards per receptions or more, which would rank top 11 in the NFL. The Browns are 3rd, the Ravens are 4th, the Commanders are 11th. And I think in this offense, now that Najee Harris is starting to run the ball really well, obviously we know Pickens is, their stud receiver, but he is the kind of player that it would not surprise me against bad defenses. He gets behind on a play action and kind of what happened this, last week. He has one, catch for a big touchdown. So if you're looking for somebody just to fill in and buys in deeper leagues, I think he's actually a pretty good play, just really for the next 4 weeks, because it's 3 of the worst defenses in the league versus wide receivers and also give up the most big plays to pass catchers.
Yeah, he feels very Demir Birdish to me. Like,
Ooh.
I mean, Demir Bird, Keith.
I do.
I mean, six of those points were also off of that return touchdown that he had. I don't know. I just don't know if I can go to the well with an Arthur Smith wide receiver. I mean, granted, he's given routes to Scotty Miller and he's given, but I'm with you on Coker because we've seen all these wide receivers on completely tanking teams that have Terrell Pryor, Keelan Cole, Kenny Britt, guys that have just been absolute nothings throughout. Guys that have been absolute nothings in their career, but were in a good situation, on a tanking team before they ended up drafting high price, higher skill position players. So yeah, I do think Coker is interesting in maybe he can be around with us when we start getting good players.
I like too that he did it with Bryce, right? Because I'm assuming whether it's, moving forward or just later, Bryce is eventually going to get, I think, a majority of the snaps down the stretch. It's good to see he actually had a good game with the, the younger QB and not just Andy Dalton.
Right. He feels Tyler Boyd-ish in a way where Tyler Boyd was a pretty target dominant guy before the Bengals ever drafted T. Higgins and Jamar Chase when when Andy Dalton was still there in Cincinnati. It was literally Tyler Boyd and Brandon LaFell. And that was it.
Oh my God. So
by the way, funny story about that. When I was the Packers Bengals game, Stacey, you might remember this. This was the game in Lambeau where Geronimo Allison caught the pass to set up a Mason Crosby field goal in overtime. Yes. I was at that game and I stayed at the hotel in Appleton, and it happened to be the Bengals hotel. So check it out. Andy Dalton at the hotel bar, slinging him back, and Brandon LaFell right outside of my room in the hallway running sprints.
That's amazing. Man, that is on my bucket list, Kev, is to go to Lambeau for a game.
Gotta do it.
I gotta make that happen at some point. Guys, we got
preferably early in the season because it's
cold. No. I'm a Florida girl, man. I'm not built for that cold, so we gotta go before it gets too chilly.
That game was hot though. That was end of September. That was Romo's first. I remember that vividly. That was Romo's first year in the booth, and that was like his biggest call. And that started to put him on the map was that call in that game.
How long has he been doing that?
Oh my gosh.
2017.
A while.
God, man. That's the kind of stuff makes me feel. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. So old. Ugh. Parker Washington, guys, Jacksonville. Right. So this is kind of a potential ad, right? So I don't have a ton of stats for you about Parker Washington because he hasn't played a lot because he hasn't needed to. But you got Brian Thomas, who's going to miss a few games. You got Christian Kirk, who's done for the season. Gabe Dave had a hurt shoulder going into this game, plays, re-injures it during the game. Okay, so now we're down 3 pass catchers. right, for Jacksonville. So they play the Eagles in week 9. Eagles opponents pass approximately 59.6% of the time. That is about where Trevor Lawrence is passing anyway. They're probably going to be playing from behind. I mean, I can't imagine that they wouldn't be, which definitely means more throwing. So we love that. What's up, Rich? We see you back in here. So Trevor Lawrence, right, I said he's been throwing around 270 yards per game. All of these vacated targets that went to Brian Thomas, Christian Kirk, Gabe Dave, they've got to go somewhere, right? So if you're adding all of those up, you're doing some math, you're getting 54% of the total targets went to those 3 players. So for missing at least 2, potentially 3 with Gabe Davis, Trevor Lawrence got to throw to somebody, okay? And it's going to be Parker Washington. You've also got a couple other guys in there as well with Tim Jones, Devin Duvernay. The reason why
they just added somebody on off. They just added somebody today.
They added Avilas Jones. Not real excited about that. So I can tell you why. Parker Washington was the one that I picked out, singled out amongst the I guess now 4. Really, is that he has been the one to see the most action. He's been on the field for 74% of snaps this last week, and he's been in at least every game for the rest of the other games that they've played. Not necessarily can say that really about Tim Jones, Devin Duvernay. They have 3 targets collectively on the season. So Parker Washington is it for me. Am I super excited about this offense? No, I am not. But that is just how it goes right now. We're at week 9. It's an absolute bloodbath. You guys, every there's probably somebody's gotten hurt since we started the show that we don't even know about. So it's slim pickings.
Hopefully they're a Saints player.
Yeah, but hopefully, hopefully this is. Okay, that's not nice, Keith.
The bastard of positivity.
I know, just down the drain. No more positivity. But hopefully this is a situation, kind of like a Cedric Tillman, right, where we told you to go get him last week on the potential that he could really have a big game. And hopefully you're going to see that out of Parker Washington next week. And we can come back and continue our beacon of positivity. We have a ton
of winner, though, Evan Ingram. Like, holy crap, the targets this dude is going to get the rest of the way is insane.
Yeah, Evan Ingram to the freaking moon, guys. Okay. We got a lot of wide receiver questions. I want to get to these. Ishmael, you've got a question on here. It's kind of tied in with Isaac Guerrero, who we are going to talk about. He's somebody that we've got listed here. So I'm going to save that for him. But your question also did include Josh Downs and Shakir with you dropping Hopkins and Jalen McMillan. You've got Drake London, Tyreek Hill, Jameson Williams. You've got a lot of other guys on your team, it looks like here. But basically you want to know, I guess the question, are you asking, are you dropping Hopkins and McMillan?
Dropping McMillan for Downs 100%.
Yeah, for Downs. I still think that McMillan is going to have a role in that offense, but if you're just talking about those specific 2 players, yeah, I would agree. I think Downs has more viability than McMillan does right now.
Yeah. And then looking at the rest of the roster, like I'm assuming I don't know if that's Jameson Williams or Javonte as far as like a running back goes. Because I know Chase Brown, Connor, like you have Mason, but should you claim Guerrero? I'm not sure with that specifically.
Yeah. For me, when we're going to talk about Guerrero, it's in a really limited set of circumstances. Like he's not an ad that you should be really prioritizing in most leagues. But I don't want to spoil it. We'll get to that in just a little bit. Tootsie Pop over here, Rach has got a question. Are we picking up Adam Thielen where we've got space? Obviously, Rachel, a big Vikings fan, so hence her Adam Thielen love over here.
You see y'all's trade today, Rich?
Yeah. I did.
They picked up a tackle from the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yep.
Oh, Cam.
Yeah, Cam Robinson.
Yep.
I would rather have him than Adam Thielen.
Cam Robinson? Oh, ouch.
I love you, Rachel, but I think it's time to just let a sleeping dog lie.
Oh, that's a bummer.
He served his time.
He did. It was fun.
His watch is ended.
Oh, man. All right. Well, KJ has a question over here. KJ wants to know, is it a better PPR flex play this week for McMillan, Deontay Johnson, Javonte Williams, or Zach Moss. So who are you putting in your flex spot this week?
Ooh.
Gotta figure Deontay's going to be on some, I don't know if he's going to be on a full snap count kind of thing. And then trust me, it's the most hilarious thing about the last 3 weeks is that we've had to do this with obviously Puka. We know who came out on top of that, DeAndre Hopkins, and now Deontay Johnson. We get to figure out how that's going to shake out. But other than that, Tampa's against Kansas City or no?
Kansas City Monday Night Football, and the Ravens are playing Denver, which is a pretty stingy defense too. So I don't know that I love either one of those matchups.
I think Javonte though has the pass catching upside. Like I know that he didn't see it this week, but especially
because he has it doesn't mean he's going to get it.
Well, that's fair, but I mean I think he's the safe of these plays potentially.
Yeah, given their matchups.
Not saying
I would agree.
But again, if Coker's out there, I wouldn't mind him this week either. So
there you go. All right, guys. And then it looks like we got our Tyler Sperry over here wants to know, are we starting Tank Dell up this week? He's got a Dell versus Josh Downs. Also, Tyler, I saw you had a question in here too about are we playing Dell versus Sauce Gardner? Because they do play the Jets on Thursday Night Football. I do. I'm taking Downs over Dell, but Downs over Dell. Yes.
That's not to discount Dell because I don't think Sauce Gardner hasn't been lockdown Sauce Gardner. I think that dude needs to stop worrying about his golf game, honestly, because I know how much on Twitter Sauce Gardner is 100% into the golf game. So he has not been.
Well, it's better than listening to Aaron Rodgers and getting into the stuff he's into.
He's probably just on his golf game listening to the Joe Rogan podcast. And
probably so. I think in that specific scenario, Tyler, I think I would agree Downs over Dell. But if you're looking outside that and just looking at Dell, I think you have to start him this week. I'm not taking that specific situation, but I think you do have to start him up. I don't, it's his show. It's his, at this point, Collins and Diggs are not going to be there. So
136 in PFF coverage grade, by the way, Sauce Gardner.
Sauce Gardner.
Okay. Is it really that bad?
Yeah.
Wow.
Not great, Bob.
All right, guys. So moving on to running backs, guys, we are an hour in, and remember, if you want to get some more in-depth information about all of our waiver options, you can find Kev's article over at fantasyandframes.com. Our IDP article is up as well. We are going to be covering that at the end of the show, so hang tight if you're looking for the IDP information. But right now, for our running backs, we've got 3 to talk to you about. We've got Tyler Algier, 47%. We got Blake Corum, 23%. And we got Isaac Garendo in here at 9. All right. So Tyler, Algier, Rich, I'm so glad you're back and you get to talk about your guy now. Let's hear it. No, did that?
No, I'm just kidding.
I was like, oh my God.
That was good.
That's good. That's a good bit just to do that.
Right. Yeah, no, I do like Tyler Algier a lot this week. I think he has a decent matchup against the Cowboys. And the last time that he had a decent matchup like this was against oh dang it, I'm trying to remember who it was. It was just a couple weeks ago. Oh, Carolina Panthers. There we go. It was just against the Panthers, and he put up 15 carries for over 100 yards and a touchdown. I don't think that he'll be doing that again, but I do think that he will have a good matchup because Dallas Cowboys have been giving up quite a bit of yards to the run game. And so I do think that he's going to get into the mix quite a bit. And if something happens to Robinson, God forbid, you'll want him around. So
yeah. Tyler Algier. Blake Corum, Kev, this is your guy.
Yeah, so running back is a bit lean this week. So on the waiver wire column, I did talk about 3 running backs that should be rostered in every league just based on contingent upside. And I think Corum has some of the best contingent upside. We've seen him For the first 4 weeks of the season, it was Ronnie Rivers running a very, very sparing role behind Kyron Williams. We know what Kyron Williams has done, his game streak with a touchdown. With Blake Corum, I can totally see if something happens to Kyron Williams, you're looking at back end running back 1 production for a guy that we know was drafted in, I believe, the 3rd round. So I do think that with just the massive market share of touches that Kyron Williams gets every week, knowing how strong this offense now is with Cooper Kupp, with Puka Nacua, that Blake Corum, that trickle down effect should come down to him too, where he should be on every single roster. And if something happens to Williams, I mean, we've seen injuries just completely decimate fantasy rosters. So that should actually lead people to be scouring waivers and looking at more running backs that have contingent value. And Corum has some of the strongest that you'll find.
Thanks. All right, guys. Last but not least, Isaac Guerrero. Keith, do we want to? You and I are both going to talk about him. Do we want to
tag team with Stacy? Is that what you're saying?
I was going to say, do you want to rock paper scissors to see who goes first?
No, I mean I'll just because I don't have a lot of stuff other than just.
I don't either.
I don't believe CMC is healthy or going to finish the season. Maybe not even play. So I want whatever 49ers I can just in case, because it's one of the few backups that we saw it with Jordan Mason. If they have the job, like it's a very significant role and it's worth taking a shot on. So if he's out there and you can grab him, I would.
That's kind of where I'm going with this too. So this is really limited set of circumstances. We're talking about if you have room on your roster, like don't let go of somebody that you're going to potentially play for him. But if you've got room that you can stash him, I would stash him. They do have a bye in week 9, so you're not going to be able to use him this week. Allegedly there's talk that CMC maybe comes back in week 10. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I don't think we really know that much right now. Mason has also been banged up, right? But he's going to have this bye week to recover. Does he recover fully? Again, we don't know that. It's not
good though when in back-to-back games the shoulder issue is so bad you end up not finishing the game. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's. Oh, sorry, Kev. Go ahead.
I'll just say no. Go ahead.
No,
I'll wait later.
So just gonna say, guys. So that's why you're targeting Isaac Guerrero for all of those things that could potentially happen, right? He was the top 10 fantasy running back in week 8, 14 carries, 85 yards, a score, 19.2 fantasy points. The 49ers are a top 10 run offense. They're running 49% of the time, which is the 9th most overall. They're also tied for 9th most in rushing touchdowns. So like he said, if you are looking for, somebody to kind of stash for a play maybe later if you need it, that's the guy that I would be going after for that. If you need somebody to start this week, obviously you're not going to go get Guerrero for this week. But that's what we've got for Isaac Guerrero. Kev?
Anthony Volpe just hit a grand slam.
Hey!
Oh, I thought you were like raising your hand.
But I am too. Well, I was just going to say, Keith, make sure you get on the horn with your buddy down at Mar-a-Lago to get the scoop on CMC.
Hello?
and you're going to get Nick Bosa on the phone for that. Yeah. Anyway.
And Rudolph. Anyway.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. All right, guys. So we have a quick question over here. Bobby has got a running back question for us. So he is hurting at the running back position, aren't we all? Bobby, so he's got David Montgomery and Tank Bigsby. He wants to know if he should consider trading CeeDee Lamb for Joe Mixon. He's also got Olave, Xavier Worthy, Keon Coleman, Jacoby Myers, and Cedric Tillman. Looks like you did pretty well at your receiving room there.
Wait a minute now. I'm a little confused because it says he's hurting a running back when he's got David Montgomery, who's like the surest thing in football.
Yeah.
And Tank Bigsby, who could have upside. There's no way I'm trading CeeDee Lamb for
No.
Joe Mixon.
Not a chance.
Not with those two.
I trade Olave for him.
Yeah,
Right,
that's a good one. So,
If anything, I would trade Tank Bigsby for another wide receiver.
Yeah.
There you go.
Depends on how many RBs they're starting.
That's true. Bobby, maybe give us some more information about your league here so we can.
I really like his 2 bags. I mean, to be honest, like rest of the way. Because I mean that the receiving core is not bad, but that's a lot of like need. And CeeDee Lamb, I know he didn't have the greatest start to the season, but we were reminded in the game the other night, like he's CeeDee freaking Lamb. He can have as big a games as any receiver in football. It can go on a real heater.
I would try to consolidate some of your Keon, like if you can bank on the Keon Coleman thing and trade him, and even if you could trade Keon Coleman and Cedric Tillman to somebody who's like really needs wide receivers for a running back, even if it's like, I don't know who, I'm trying to think of who you could probably get, like a mid-tier running back. I think you could probably I'm like, do it for Nick Chubb.
That's who I was thinking. Oh my God, I wish I'd have said that out loud. That was literally what I was thinking.
I'd be totally down for that.
I love it. All right, guys. Well, Bobby, I hope that answers your question. If you've got a second, there's some more info about your league in there. We would love to get to it. Before we move on to tight end, I want to hit Andrea's question real quick about CJ Stroud versus Joe Flacco. These are both players that are going to have primetime matchups. You've got CJ Stroud playing the Jets Thursday Night Football. You've also got Joe Flacco and the Colts facing the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday Night Football. Both are pretty stout defenses. I mean, I just took a look, and the New York Jets are giving up the fifth fewest fantasy points to opposing teams' quarterbacks, whereas the Vikings, you're going to have at least a little bit more. They're more in the green over here. They're giving up 18.2 points to opposing teams' quarterbacks.
Nice way to put it.
It is. I mean, they're still like a really good defense, though. I mean, so I just kind of just took a look.
Well, I thought it was until I watched the game Thursday, because I was all over your Vikings defense, and then it was like.
Also,
Thursday night games are weird though. I don't like Thursday night games. Right?
Sidebar.
Weird.
Well, they suck.
Like,
They're usually horrible.
Weird scores.
No,
weird things happen.
That is true.
Like,
weird stuff.
Not the normal happens. I don't know. For me, it makes me feel like I might go Flacco instead.
Sidebar. How many fucking games do the Jets need on prime time?
Thank you. Why? Why can't we flex this? Like, I don't understand. NFL,
I think I'm asking for America here.
Please.
But I would go Flacco.
Do you want my best Aaron
Flacco.
Rodgers conspincy theory as to why they can't flex it?
Throw that 10
It still might be like the sixth best conspiracy theory I've heard today, but go on.
All right, 1 minute, 1 hour, 11 minutes, 45 seconds, and go.
No, I don't want to get canceled.
Yeah, if you play Dark Side of the Moon backwards, you get Aaron Rodgers' pregame warm-up routine.
I saw a meme today that it said, "Can Aaron Rodgers take the Jets to the Super Bowl?" And it said yes, but it's going to cost him a lot of money to buy that many tickets. Yikes!
Yeah, I guess we need the Game Day app. Call us, by the way, sponsorship.
Oh, that's hilarious. Oh my goodness. Well, Andrea, I hope that answers your question. I think it sounds like a pretty resounding Flacco for us. Tight end.
There was a question there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, come on. We're gonna move on.
We eventually got to it.
Yeah, we got a few for us over here. We got Taysom Hill. We got
Damn, my tight end didn't even make the list.
No, Keith, here's what happens is you got to get it in early so that our producer can do the graphic.
He just put them in. Like, we know that.
You put it in. Just,
so don't be shitting on me. It was definitely
There's about 5 that's what she said in that entire.
There's a few of those.
Can't pick just one.
Rostered in 40% of leagues. We got old man Zach Ertz. Rich, tell us why he is making your waiver wire list this week.
Sure. So here we go again. I'm asking you once more, like everyone else has, like Keith with Eric All. I'm guessing that's who you had. Is that who you had, Keith? Was it Eric?
No,
All?
I did not. I had another guy that's 0% owned, but I'm still on the Eric All train, in case you're wondering. So,
but no, he's got a tougher matchup this week against the Giants, but he had a tougher matchup last week, I think, against the Bears. He still had his highest score. It was only by 0.7 points, but still last week he had his highest score of the year. And he had a season high 11 targets. So he's definitely getting used in the offense a lot more. He's tight end 9 on the season and climbing. I really do think that he is somebody that you want to have on your team. He's staying healthy, surprisingly, and continuing to play. So he's somebody that I'm grabbing in all of my leagues if he's still available and plugging him in.
Nice.
It was so frustrating watching that game. It was like every single time someone got a pass, I was like, God damn it, it's Ertz. Why?
How? It's inevitable. Eric, are you okay after that game? Like, do we need to have like, are you all right?
We're not talking about it. We're not
How
talking
about
about it.
Jorge going full heel and just texting to the text group how amazing of a victory and the greatest? And I'm like, Jorge, you do realize there's a Bears fan in this group and you're basically just rubbing it in her face.
I've seen
I
so
got
many
that.
videos of people like celebrating, and then as soon as that play happens, they're silent. And that was literally us here at home.
Did you see the video of the fan being interviewed by the local Washington like TV station?
No, send that to me.
He's literally saying that I felt like it was a moral victory, like we won this game, even though, and then literally you hear the crowd go crazy and he just starts screaming over, I told you. It's like you did not tell us, but that's okay.
Oh my god.
It was a moral victory for the Green Bay Mermen.
Oh my goodness. Alrighty, so we got Tyler Conklin over here, guys. We have talked about Tyler Conklin before. However, warrants a little bit more chat this week since you are going to be missing George Kittle. You're going to be missing Patrick Freiermuth. Patrick Freiermuth? I don't know that that's his name.
His government name. I didn't know if we
government
needed to
name.
that.
Not sure how that came out of my mouth. Was
Did
thinking
you go to
of
jury
Patty
duty?
Fries, but I don't know, guys. All right, so Jets are playing the Texans at home this week on Thursday. We already talked about that. The Texans are notoriously tough on opposing teams' tight ends. However, right, we do, like I said, have Kittle, have Patty Fries on a bye. Tyler Conklin, the nice thing about him is that he's going to be on the field 86% of snaps so far this season. He has scored double-digit fantasy points in his last 2 games. Rodgers is throwing to his tight end 17% of the time, and Rodgers does also have the second most, pass attempts this season with 284. If you guys want to take a guess who has thrown the most so far this season, it's in the show sheet. Don't look.
Going to look.
Don't look.
What was the question? I wasn't paying attention.
I did say it a little bit quickly. Which quarterback has the most passing attempts so far this season?
Most passing attempts?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go with Joseph Burrow.
Wrong.
I would have said I know who it is. I would have said Baker Mayfield though.
I would have said Baker too. Baker has the most touchdowns. It's Geno Smith. He is in first place with he's thrown for 308 times. Tyler Conklin is a top 15 tight end in fantasy this season. So 22% of leagues, he's rostered out there. He is available if you are looking for a bye week fill-in. He would be somebody that you could go and get pretty easily, I would think. We got Taysom Hill over here, Kev. It's time to talk about Taysom Hill.
Look, as the preeminent slappy, the Taysom slappies, I did trademark that, by the way. We have yet to really get Taysom Hill this season, and I think that time could be coming.
Falcons, we saw it in the first half, then he got hurt. He had the 2 touchdowns.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like that was like the appetizer. That was the bacon wrapped scallops, and we still have the meal coming with Taysom Hill. But look, we know Derek Carr is banged up. He's trying to make it back in week 9 against the Carolina Panthers. But if not, even if he does, Taysom Hill is now healthy. I could see him being worked in. We know he's going to get a bunch of rushes. He's going to get some targets. He's going to be all over the field. And if he adds quarterback value to that, where I would say if Carr was out, Taysom Hill should be worked in more as a quarterback than anything, seeing how bad Spencer Rattler has been. And Spencer Rattler, we thank you for your service, but your service is no longer needed here because Taysom Hill is about to go off for 35 points at quarterback this week. Maybe not this week, but I do think the Taysom Hill experience at the tight end position where he's eligible in a lot of leagues is like a game changer. So
including DFS Kev, I've already got him in a boatload of DraftKings lineups with
Boise,
Carolina's run
Idaho.
defense.
Let's go.
Hello.
There we go. All right, Keith, bring us home with Adam Troutman, one of 2 Denver tight ends who had a touchdown on National Tight End Day. Who do you all know who the second Denver tight end was who had a touchdown?
Tim Tebow.
Nope. I mean,
Nate Atkins
on Sunday. Yeah, Nate Atkins.
Can we all agree National Tight End Day is the dumbest holiday of all time?
I'm not going to agree with that. Absolutely not.
No?
Absolutely not. I love National Tight End Day. I think it's
Hey, did you know it was a National Tight End Day last week? I don't think anybody knew that.
And you know what? Do you guys know how it started? Do you all know how National Tight End?
Yes, by
George Kittle.
By a douche.
No, not George Kittle. It is most closely associated with George Kittle. However, in 2018, Jimmy Garoppolo threw a touchdown to not Brent Selleck, no, his brother Garrett Selleck. Garrett, exactly. And was having such a great day. Jimmy was like, "What is this, National Tight End Day? Ha ha ha." And it became like a thing with the 49ers, and then became more promoted with George Kittle. But that is how it actually came to be. And I think it's fun. Like the NFL likes to take all the fun out of football. Like, this is a fun day. Like, just let people enjoy it. Like, why are we gonna be a little Debbie Downer over here, Keith?
I'm not being a Debbie. Go ahead.
It's
Kevin.
fun until you get beaten over the head with it by Scott Hansen and Twitter at large.
Like, Thank you.
You guys are no fun. You guys are just no fun.
They ruined it. That's what I'm saying. They ruined it. People being people, and everybody wanting to be witty and whatever. You ruined it. So Bob Gronkowski's not in the NFL anymore. So tight end, I don't want anything to do with tight end day. Okay.
Oh, you guys.
Real quickly, just on Troutman. This is an absolute dart for if you're getting deeper leagues. You're just looking for somebody. Their next two games are against the two worst defenses in the NFL versus tight ends, Baltimore and KC. It's ridiculous. Baltimore second in yards, KC in first yards allowed to tight ends. Receptions, flip-flop. Baltimore second, KC first. Like, these are the two defenses to just keep on giving. Both are giving up over 11.5 yards per receptions to tight ends. It's not a bad play for these next 2 weeks if you have tight ends on a bye and there's nobody else out there.
Yeah. All right, guys. We got a question not really a question. We got a comment in the chat over here about needing a National Daniel Jones Day so you get a decent day out of him. I don't even know that would help. Not sure that would be effective. Kev, we've got a few minutes before we got to turn it on over to the Fantasy and Frames hockey show tonight. So would you bring us on home with our IDP pickups for the week, please?
Yes, absolutely. Aziz, can we get names that are maybe a little bit easier to?
Aziz Ojulari, come on now.
Like, can we mix in a Pete Smith or like a John Jones or something? That'd be great.
How about Jalen Carter?
Yeah, that would be totally fine. Aziz Ojulari, when Kayvon Thibodeau went out for the Giants, appeared to be a major blow to the Giants' pass rush. However, Ojulari stepped up in a big way, so much that he's a hot name in trade rumors as the deadline nears. The 24-year-old told reporters he's just as interested as keeping his hot streak going. Ojulari has had 7 total tackles and 2 sacks in Monday's loss to the Steelers, giving him 5 sacks over his last 3 games over that 3-week span. No defensive lineman in the NFC has more fantasy points, and that sounds like the sort of IDP fantasy managers want on their roster. I would totally agree with that. Mohamed Diabate. We'll just go with that. Ask your doctor if that is right for you. The Cleveland Browns have
prescribed Mohamed Diabate for many different illnesses that I have.
Yeah, you and me both, brother. All right. The Cleveland Browns have been. We used to be a proper show. The Cleveland Browns have been blasted by injuries at linebacker again. Jordan Hicks missed week 8. And Jeremiah Wilson-Koromoa wound up hospitalized after Derrick Henry ran him over last week. T's and P's out to JOK. Mohamed Diabate made the start in place of Hicks last week and reveled in the stop the Browns got to secure the win over the rival Baltimore Ravens. Diabate arguably had the best game of his young career against the Ravens, playing 89% of defensive snaps, making 9 total tackles with a tackle for loss. Given the depleted state of Cleveland's linebacking core, the second-year pro will likely make at least one more start Sunday at home against the Los Angeles Chargers.
Nice.
Oh, he had another ring, Kev. 5-2 Yanks.
Look at that. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this Tuesday. Have a great week, all my little trick-or-treaters out there. Guys, make sure to give us all a follow over on social media. You can find Keith at Keith Fleming. Rich is at Rich Sickles GBM. Erica's at America with a K108. Kevin is at K Tompkins II. Look at that. Stacy can read. I'm at Stacy_Perez 83. Guys, give us that like, that follow if you enjoyed all of our chat today about waivers.
Let Erica real quickly before we get out her say what she is for Halloween, because I don't know if everybody caught that.
Oh yeah, I'm a disappointment. Dak Prescott jersey, Cowboys fan.
I love it.
Yes,
QB14.
If you are listening, she's in a Dak Prescott jersey coming in as a disappointment. Guys, remember you can check out all of our waiver information over at fantasyandframes.com. We will be back next week with more waiver info for you. Until then, have a great night.